This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Greetings from Boston and the Four Nations Tournament, everybody. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. 1 day away from one of the most anticipated hockey games to be played in recent memory. Maybe dating all the way back to the 2010 Vancouver Olympics. Canada-USA tomorrow. Lots of news from around the National Hockey League and around the tournament we'll be getting to. And we will also hear from the Winnipeg Jets and Team Canada's Josh Morrissey coming up in a few minutes as we get going. It's going to be a fun show. Lots of talk about the big game tomorrow. Craig Button, TSN's Director of Scouting, will join us to give his thoughts on the round-robin portion of the tournament, the big game tomorrow night, and what our Canadian team needs to do to win the Four Nations Trophy, the very beautiful Four Nations Trophy, I will say, for the one and only time it will be played for. Because, of course, Olympics next year, and then the next time the NHL and the NHLPA do this, it's going to be a World Cup. So there'll be more than just the four nations, Sweden, Finland, Canada, and the United States. So Craig's going to jump on with us. Jeff Hamilton, looking forward to getting Hammer's thoughts. Hammer was always known to mix it up a bit. I'm sure he loved the beginning of the game on Saturday night. So we'll get to that as well as some Bomber off-season chat. And then Jamie Thomas, also here in Boston, is going to jump on, and very much looking forward to Jamie's take. We spoke with him last week after the first game. Thoughts on, just to find out more about his experience being in the building on Saturday night, as well as what's happening with the Winnipeg Jets here at the tournament. Connor Hellebuck and Kyle Connor, of course, on the home Americans tomorrow night, looking for the Four Nations Trophy. Josh Morrissey's great tournament, and much more. So, going to be a fun one. Great to have you all with us. Shout out to everybody in chat. And a big thanks to the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. By the way, make sure to check out my pinned tweet at Hustlerama. There's also a link in the description. The auction for the Health Sciences Center Foundation Fund a Need campaign continues until Saturday. Let you know about that in a few minutes, but check it out. Some amazing prizes for a great cause. And also in the description, links for the big event next Thursday at the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame with Winnipeg Sports Talk, the Maker's Mark Masterclass special whiskey tasting event, along with a bit of a Jets watch party with the Jets taking on the Nashville Predators. Hopefully you can join us for that. Also want to thank, of course, our great sponsors and partners at CoolBet, making my time here in Boston possible. Of course, Princess Auto, Rolly's Transfer, the Terry and the gang down at St. Vital Dental Center, F Apparel, Wallace & Wallace, Manitoba Battery, fansfirst.ca, and we'll get to a why not question of the day, Little Brown Jug, Royal Sports, and Boston Pizza, who is getting ready for maybe one of the biggest days in the year at BP tomorrow night for Canada versus the United States. All right, let's get going and welcome in Michael Remis to the show. Remo, what's going on? How's it back in the peg? Is it warming up at all?
No, it's frozen out here, but I think this is the last day. So I am very excited for it to finally warm up. Been wanting to get outdoors and do stuff, but like minus 30, yes, it's picked a good week to go away.
Yeah, well, I don't know what happened. I think it was yesterday. I kind of got up, getting ready to do my thing, and fired up, and I didn't even need to check the weather. Because other people were firing up pictures of like minus 32, minus 33 when they woke up. And I realized that we certainly are not out of the woods yet for the winter, but it does look like it's warming up coming up in the next few days. So we will all look forward to that. We were out last night. Dusty made it in 2 days late, missed the first 2 games, but he'll be with us tomorrow. Of course, Dustin Nielsen from Edmonton Sports Talk. And, we went out for a nice dinner with some of our guests, a bunch of the Finns, and then went to a pub last night. And it's the oldest continually running bar or tavern in the United States. 1795 was this place. And listen, it was fun. There was karaoke. There was all people going on, but a ton of excitement for the Four Nations. And it was, listen, this was a Tuesday night. I'm sure there were a few karaoke regulars, but you could tell there was a lot of people in for the tournament. Some Canadians, some Americans, and a lot of hockey talk in and around here. And I mean, it shouldn't be surprising. This is, Massachusetts overall, a great hotbed of hockey. But man, with everything that happened in Montreal to start things off, not to mention the geopolitical things that have maybe influenced some of the coverage of it, the buzz is here. And I think everyone would just love to get to the game. But to be honest, I think for the NHL and the NHLPA to have an extra day, first of all, to have the best product of these two teams that have been through a lot so far this tournament, but also continue to get this hype going. And man, you look at what the TV numbers were, both in the United States and Canada, for the round robin game on Saturday. It can only go up for tomorrow's game. And this is going to be one of the most watched hockey games, I think, ever in North America.
Yeah, they put out the ratings after the show. It was, over 10 million combined, 10.1 million in North America. That's Canada and U.S. 4.7 million on Sportsnet. 9.35 Canadians reached, it says. And you're looking at tonight, Huss. Well, if you've not got enough Four Nations, they do some reality show. Four Nations Face Off Unveiled. This is part 1 tonight on Sportsnet. So that, you can't do an event, Huss, anymore without having an accompanying reality show on some streamer. We've seen it with the golf one, the Formula One. So, they've done this before with Winter Classic and with all the best play. They did the face-off before training camp on Amazon. So I'm intrigued. If I'm not, trying to catch up on, the 10 hours of SNL 50th anniversary content from the weekend, but I'll tune into this. And the other thing, ratings. Adam Seaborn, our good friend with Nation Network, he was putting out the numbers, Huss. So for context, it was 4.75 million for Canada, USA. The Jays 2015 ALCS 5.1. The Raptors 2019 Game 6 7.2. Canada, Croatia at the World Cup 4.4. The Super Bowl this past year, 2024 Super Bowl was 10 million. And the 2010 Olympic gold was 16.6. So I'm very curious what the TV number is going to be in Canada. Does it get up to 7 million? A lot of people.
16.6 was that number from the Vancouver Olympics?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
so that
big
bar
number.
is raised. I kind of thought that this game might rival that. Now, I think considering what we're talking about, we're talking 4 times as many people watching. Now, Saturday is not a great night for TV ratings. So I think inevitably that number will be higher. And to be honest, I think the number will be significantly higher because I think there were still a number of people that were like, well, let's see how this goes. Now we've got the hype for a number of days. We've got Canada that has lost to this team on Saturday. But I think it's safe to say that it's not going to get to the 16 that the Canada-USA gold medal game. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of, if not the most watched hockey game in North America since the 2010 gold medal game.
That's a good comment. As you said, the hype is certainly there after the first one with all the fights and the start and the Canada-US, the best players. So very exciting. So Thursday night, we will all be tuned in. And I do see a lot of conflicted people. It's like, well, how about Canada wins 1-0, but Hellebuck makes 50 saves or something, something like that. So
I love that.
Jets fans, I think are a bit torn. I'm seeing this. Definitely want Canada to win, but not put up too many goals, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think for all of the players involved, you want them to have a great experience. You want it to be, a springboard to a great end of the regular season, but most importantly, a great playoffs. And it's unique. I mean, as a goaltender, and listen, Helly's been great so far. I mean, he gave up that one early goal to Finland, and he got beat by an all-world, all-time play by Connor McDavid. Other than that, he hasn't let anything in. And, you go into the kind of the advanced metrics from the game on from the Saturday game against the United States. I mean, it was the McDavid high danger chance. They didn't generate much other than that. And anything that Connor Hellebuck sees, he's stopping right now. So it just seems like business as usual for Helly. He's going through the same warm-up, the same routines the day before the game, the day of the game. And we know how successful he's been for the Winnipeg Jets. And, I mean, I think that he's going to play the usual Connor Hellebuck game. And if Canada's going to beat him, they're going to need to be at their best, and their best players are going to need to be back at their best as well. To me, the big wild card is Jordan Binnington. When I was talking with Dusty on the Lock Shop earlier today, Reem, I honestly believe that any scenario is possible with Binnington. He absolutely, there is a story where it is that 1-0 win, and he stands on his head, and we're in this all-time crazy goaltending battle, and Binnington is just absolutely clutch. I could also see him letting 3 of the first 4 in, and Aiden Hill jumping in the first period. There's far less that you can count on, I think, in the Canadian net than what the United States has. But on the other side of that coin, I think that we can count on, like we did in the game that the Canada absolutely had to have against the Finns, that Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, Sidney Crosby, the leaders and top players on this team, will be ready to go and will be ready to represent their country with an incredible amount of pride, intensity, with a focus on one thing and one thing only, and that is getting the win. And listen, while we're talking all this stuff about Quinn Hughes, which we'll get to in a minute, let's not forget that Cale Makar, who, to be honest, when we're talking about the best players in the league, is right at the top of the list of defensemen, along with Quinn Hughes. We'll give him that, but I mean, I think most people are taking Cale Makar. He wasn't in that game. He'll have the opportunity to come take a bit of the load off Josh Morrissey, who, played a ton Saturday night, and hopefully give the Canadians a little bit more offensive pop because they're going to need it to beat a guy in Connor Hellebuck that we know can take over games and can really frustrate the other team.
Yeah, I think maybe there's some trepidation of what you're going to see from Jordan Binnington in the net, but he is going to be the starting goalie, and I think Canada's painted themselves into a corner with him. I think it was tough with the scheduling. You want to have your best goalie for the Canada-USA game on the Saturday. So, they played him in game. I don't know what their plan was going in, but they played him in game 1. It's like, well, if he's your guy, you play him in game 2. And they needed to win in game 3. So you weren't going to make any changes. And, I mean, he's made some big saves at big times for sure. We do have him being a Stanley Cup champion in Game 7 in the building where this game will be played on Thursday, which I think is an interesting wrinkle. But you're hearing so many players they have bought in. They're saying this is the biggest game they've ever played. Last game, was the best game they ever played. A lot of hyperbole going on, but I think a lot of it is certainly true. And you saw excellent hockey. The players care. They're hurting themselves. Charlie McAvoy. With the hurt shoulder, he's not going to play. Shea Theodore is out for Canada, as we've happened in game 1 of the tournament early on, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. And someone is going to be raising that beautiful looking trophy. There's a very nice feature at NHL.com how they designed and made that thing, a world of bronze making that I had no knowledge of. But I thought, the World Cup trophy, I thought it sucked. This one, they tried to blend traditional looking trophy with a contemporary look, and it fits in nicely. And I don't know what's going to happen to it after. Like, does it just go in the Hall of Fame? And you look at it, okay, there's the one-off tournament trophy, but very cool.
I love that you went down the rabbit hole of how the trophy was made and learned a little bit of bronze making. You can tell we need to get these games going. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. But I will say this, that business, just to go back to what you mentioned before about this behind the scenes thing, this could absolutely be fascinating. I mean, like, I know they always do the behind the scenes for the Winter Classic, and like at the start I would watch a little bit of it. But I mean, this year you had the Blackhawks in, and I guess it's neat. It's always neat to be behind the scenes, especially if it's your team in it. But if it's just some random mid or bad team like Chicago is this year, I don't know how much you're into it. This, I mean, you've got the biggest stars in the world, the best players, putting on the ice maybe the best product that we've ever seen, combining that with the rivalry and the heat coming out of what happened on Saturday. I have no idea whether this is the whole tournament and this includes Saturday night. But, man, if they have behind-the-scenes footage of both teams coming from Saturday, I don't think you could possibly have a better way to sell tomorrow night and how much this means to every one of these players that have the opportunity to play for their country.
Yeah, I agree. I think that part of it is the draw is having the best players in. And, you know, for Canada, they're going to have Cale Makar back. He played USA, you know, missing Charlie McAvoy, big loss, not able to activate Quinn Hughes unless there's a lot of I don't want to call it maybe confusion about the rules. So I'm looking forward to here's the design of the people are asking. Here's the design of the trophy. It's just like a standard like cup style trophy. So they just did some like sketches. They have a 4-minute document, like mini feature on NHL.com. These are the guys that made it. They know that it has 4 handles for the 4 teams with all their logos on it. It looks super cool. Let me just show where it is. This is them making it. So I think it looks sweet. Oh yeah, there it is. So that's the trophy right there. And they're going to be like, you can drink out of it. I think should be a prerequisite for any trophy.
Well, listen, that's a bit of a Canadian thing. You think about the best trophies in sports, the Stanley Cup, the Grey Cup. I mean, the Canadians do trophies well, and hopefully that trophy is going to be coming back to Canada from here in Boston on Friday. And, you know, it's a good question as to what happens to that. Like, do they put it in the Hockey Hall of Fame? Or, I mean, Canada's going to win it or USA is going to win it, and either USA Hockey or Hockey Canada probably gets a chance to take that, store it, and then with there not being any more Four Nations trophies, just have a beautiful centerpiece in one of the trophy cases. Quick update. So, Remis, fill us in. What you were hearing, the latest on Quinn Hughes. He was in a non-contact jersey on the other side of the continent yesterday, practicing with the Vancouver Canucks. Sounds like he wants to go there, but the NHL is still firm that Quinn Hughes cannot play in the game tomorrow unless Team USA loses another one of their defensemen. And I don't think the Canucks are very keen on having Quinn fly all the way to Boston before having to come back to Vegas right afterwards to start the season if he's not going to be in the game for Team USA.
Yeah, so Quinn Hughes was just in New Jersey, they said, and then flew to Vancouver. So he practiced. And I think when they said yesterday, Quinn Hughes is coming, those details weren't shored up. He doesn't really want to go to Boston and then have to fly all the way across the country again to Vegas to not play. Now, Michael Russo of The Athletic was saying that some players did believe that he was going to play, but the bottom line is that he can't play unless a defenseman gets hurt. Now, Frank Cervelli was on the Daily Faceoff show. Him and Tyler Yaremchuk were saying that the rules did not specify that if a forward didn't play, like Brady Tkachuk didn't practice today, they said he's had an illness and he's going to be fine. But let's say if a forward didn't play, could you call up Quinn Hughes to play and then go with 7D? They said that when I watched their show this morning, they said they didn't have an answer. So I think some of these rules going on the fly. Personally, I think he was named to the team to start with. a guy's out for the thing, they should let him play, but that's not what the rules say. They have, we all saw what happened with Thomas Harley. However, they did say once Makar came back, they said Thomas Harley could have been eligible. So, Frank and Tyler Urenchuk joked that, well, if Charlie McAvoy got ruled out, earlier in the tournament, then they brought someone in, and then McAvoy came back, they could have amended and said, hey, that player who they brought in could still play after technically not being there. So I think there's some flying by the seat of their pants, but they didn't want to have so many players on the roster as they didn't want to have guys come out and not get into any games.
Yeah, listen, I get the NHLPA being very protective of their constituency when it comes to this. But this was a big whiff by having the rosters that were so small. And listen, if guys, I think you'd have to say that, guys, listen, we want you to be on this team. We can't guarantee that you'll play. Maybe some of those guys would say, okay, thanks, but no thanks, and just not come. And that would be their prerogative. But it did seem a little crazy to only have the 2 extra players and then such stringent rules about adding to the team of players that were completely eligible to play when you were putting it all together beforehand. I think when this event happens again with the World Cup, you'll see expanded rosters, probably 25 on the roster as opposed to 23. And at that point, you're these are the guys on the team. You've got it. And I mean, I guess there's always a possibility you could lose 3 or 4 guys in a tournament if that's the case, an emergency measure. But it's kind of weird that this has been a story throughout it because the Theodore injury was what happened to Canada early on, and now with McAvoy being out. But at the end of the day, both the PA and the NHL should want the best players to be out in the spotlight. Quinn Hughes is definitely that dude. But for Quinn Hughes, who's still in a non-contact jersey, to say I would be in and I would play, I think shows you how tough it was maybe for him to bow out of the tournament heading into it, and the FOMO and regret that he probably had watching his brother and the rest of Team USA battle with the Canadians on Saturday night in particular.
Yeah, a lot of FOMO, and I think for Vancouver, they're in a playoff spot. He needs to play them, and I think you're seeing some tough managing your obligations to the team and obligations to your country as well. And I'm sure Bruins fans unhappy about McAvoy getting injured, and Vegas going through that with Theodore. But I think if you want to have these best on best tournaments that are bringing in record ratings and interest in the game, I think that unfortunately these are going to happen. And defensemen, McAvoy, you're in front of the net taking cross checks, or trying to put your body in front of other players moving at high speeds. Injuries are unfortunately going to happen, and that's just have to cross your fingers that doesn't happen to the guys on your favorite team.
Yeah, I mean, he basically checked himself out of the tournament. I mean, he was playing so aggressive. I was talking with Nielsen earlier today, and I'm like, you watch every single McDavid game. Have you ever seen him get hit like that? Yeah. And you have to go back, but he said, off the top of my head, no, I can't really. That's why the game on Saturday night, and why what we expect tomorrow to be so special, because the stakes for the guys in the game, and that's where it starts, feels so massive, and they want it so bad. And both teams have a group of individuals that will do anything that they can to help their team win a hockey game. But again, only one team is going to win, and that is why, after what happened on Saturday and everything else surrounding our two countries with hockey and outside of hockey, it should be such a memorable one. All right, Craig Button's going to join us in just a few minutes. Folks, if you're able to take a look, there's a link in the description, a link as well on my Twitter at Hustlerama in the pinned tweet, to the Health Sciences Foundation Fund a Need campaign, with all the money going to new, very important equipment to improve services and help save lives in the emergency department at HSC. Of course, I'll be forever grateful for the work that the everywhere from the surgeon to the nurses to the rehab people gave to me while I was there, a few years back in 2020. So it's been a real pleasure to be able to do what we can to help spread the news of this campaign, which, of course, you can click on the link and make a donation or support the auction, which goes until 10 p.m. on Saturday night. Now, there's a couple great Jets packages. There's a wild one to see the Packers, I believe, with 4 people in Green Bay at famous Lambeau Field. And the one that I want to focus in on is this incredible Aikens Lake fishing trip. 3 days on the water, 3 nights at Manitoba's most incredible fly-in fishing lodge run by our great friends, Pitt and Julie Torren. This package would retail for around $7,500. You can get in a bid. The bid right now on it is just under $4,000. So you're talking about just around 4. So you can get an incredible deal on this. Although I hope to support the foundation, you might crank it up. And on top of it all, I'll be your host there. I'll have a guest out there. We'll be in a couple boats. We'll ride, have amazing shore lunches every day, breakfast and dinner in the lodge, a few at night at Big Molly's, and just take in everything that Aikens Lake has to offer, including the world-class fishing. Maybe we'll get another master this summer as well. Flexible dates, which we'll work on afterwards. But right now, support the Health Sciences Foundation Fund a Need campaign and join me at Aikens Lake. The link is on my Twitter. The link is in the description of the video here on YouTube. If you're listening to the podcast, the link is in the description there. Get on over, get your bid in, and follow it up until 10 p.m. Sunday when the bidding concludes, and we will find our winner. The following week, speaking of links in the description, limited tickets available for our Whiskey Masterclass with Maker's Mark. Learning all about bourbon at the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame in an exclusive small setting with the big screens showing the Winnipeg Jets and the Nashville Predators. We had such a great time doing this last year. We're doing it again with our friends at Beam Suntory. And, with the Jets in Tennessee to take on the Preds, figured we'd get to the bourbon. So Mike could do the master from Maker's Mark who's going to come in. We're going to be trying some incredible and exclusive bourbons that you won't be able to get anywhere else. Learn all about it. Incredible charcuterie board that they put together last year that Remis is still talking about. And, of course, Jets and Preds. So next Thursday, a week tomorrow, February 27th, get your tickets today. And we'll look forward to seeing you there. Just before we bring in Craig Button, got to shout out our friends at Rolly's Transfer. If you've got a move in 2025 you need to make for you and your family, use Rolly's. Family owned and operated for over 60 years and the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. Check out their website at rollys.com. There's a request an estimate in the top right corner. Throw in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies, and let them know when and where you're moving and what needs to go. And the friendly staff at Rolly's will turn it around quick with a great quote and get you locked in with as much stress off the table as possible, because you'll be getting the white glove treatment for your move from the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba. For your next move, make it Rolly's. Find out more, request an estimate today over at rollys.com. And a big shout out, speaking of smiles, to our friends at St. Vital Dental Center, Dr. Terry and his great team. 167 St. Anne's. If you're looking for a full-service dental clinic for kids, adults, seniors, with free parking in the background, a beautiful new facility, and an amazing team of dentists and staff, St. Vital Dental is that place. Go online, stvitaldental.ca to find out more. Pop down and see him again. 167 St. Anne's, free parking in the rear. And if you're on the website, you can see everything they have, including information on dental implants, which is a big growing part of the dental industry, which they specialize in as well. stvitaldental.ca for our friends at St. Vital Dental Center. All right, let's welcome in TSN's Director of Scouting. Often we'll be talking about younger players. We'll be talking about, who's going to crack into the NHL. The guys we're talking about now are all stars in the NHL playing for their country tomorrow night right here in Boston. Craig Button joins us now. Craig, thanks so much for doing this. How are you, and how much have you enjoyed this tournament up until this point?
Really well. Hope you're doing the same. But what I would say is the fact of the matter was we haven't had these best players play versus one another for almost 9 years. And more than that, forget about what we missed. The players missed it as well. The players were itching to get to that level and compete at that level. And, McDavid wanted to play with Crosby, and McKinnon wanted to play with Crosby, and getting all these players that wanted to play not only against the best, but also with the best to try to push their level higher. I think that's made it really, really exciting. I think it's given us a real understanding of what we missed and real excitement for what lay ahead.
Well, I'm with you. And I mean, listen, I'll go even further back than the 9 years. I mean, like the World Cup of Hockey was cool, but putting in that Team North America, while I get the marketing angle of it, to me completely diminished the true best on best nature of the tournament, because there are a bunch of players on that Team North America that absolutely would have been difference makers for Canada, or especially the USA. Now we've got these teams put together. Sid's still around, but this generation that hasn't had the opportunity, to your point, to represent their country in these high stakes games now has it. And man, I mean, we'll get into the games and the final in a minute, but Craig, just as someone that loves hockey in the National Hockey League, I don't think that this tournament could have gone any better for the NHL, especially considering the joke of all-star performances that we've seen in the past, and to have it compared to what was happening with the NBA on the weekend. A 5-star win for the NHL going into tomorrow night, regardless of how the final ends up.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think that the final, we're going to have a winner, we're going to have a loser on Thursday night. It's as simple as that. But it's not going to take anything away from what this tournament has offered and everything you pointed out. And I don't think you can compare it to an all-star game. The all-star game long ago stopped being anything of a competitive nature. It was just a gathering, show off your skills. They tried to get players there. If they didn't want to come, they suspended them. And I think that what we saw was it's an opportunity to bring those players together and have kind of I don't even know what you would call it. It would be like ice capades, like, okay, let's show the skills, let's do it. But it wasn't competitive. And, the NBA, the NBA All-Star game, I mean, slam dunks, I don't know how much different it is than a real regular season game, to be honest with you. I mean, just nobody plays defense. But when you have the competitive nature of the players, and no other sport has the opportunity to do this. Like, really, when you think about all the countries that are represented in hockey, the number of quality high-end players from the various countries, baseball can't do it. Football certainly can't do it. Basketball can do it in the Olympics to a degree, and yet the U.S. is going to win every single time, it feels like. So, what is the intrigue? Well, it's not the same in hockey. And the physicality of hockey, the nature of the way the game is played and how hard it can be played. Brandon Hagel, I think, nailed it. Like, we're here to win. And he was asked about laying in bed the night before, and he said, geez, I was thinking, I hope it's not like an all-star game. I hope it's a lot better than that, because I don't want any part of that. And I think that what this Four Nations face-off has served up is how competitive and how intense hockey can be. And when you have best on best, country versus country, there's no higher level. And, no. I think that's what makes it fantastic. And there's no other sport that's going to come close. They can't. I mean, look at the NFL. It used to be a Pro Bowl game. I mean, it's flag football now. It's diving into soft cushions. I mean, really, that's not football. It's just some kind of spectacle. Great. It's great for kids, great for sponsors, stakeholders, but it's not a competitive event.
No, I mean, exactly. It doesn't truly engage fans wanting to see it at the highest level.
No.
And it's a unique opportunity. Like, I'll be straight, and listeners will know this. I've been talking about this tournament and so excited for it all year long. And I was shocked at how much pushback I got from people saying, "Wow, this is going to be like, look, this is just some made up money grab tournament that, is going to be like a big exhibition." And I'm like, do you think that Sidney Crosby or McDavid or McKinnon, like just from our side, are going to show up and just sort of go through the motions? If not, then they wouldn't be there. And I mean, we saw it right off the bat that this did mean a lot. But if anyone had any questions, Craig, we found out very quickly on Saturday night. What did you think of, what was your reaction when you saw the first 9 seconds of that game on Saturday, considering the buildup with many players like Brady Tkachuk saying, this is the biggest game of my life so far?
Well, let me just go back to your quick comments there. It is a made-up tournament. There's never been a Four Nations tournament. So it is a made-up tournament. And what's wrong with a money grab? I mean, you're trying to increase revenues across the NHL and the NHLPA got together and said, we want to increase revenues. So all those two things, there's nothing wrong with that.
No one's complaining right now.
No. Here's what I thought. And I thought going into the tournament, I was asked what I thought it would be like. I thought it would be on an intensity level of a scale to 1 to 10. It would be 8 or a 9. I really did. You think about the Stanley Cup playoffs, you think about the Olympics, right? But I thought it would be an 8 or a 9. And it has been that. It's been a 9 and probably closer to a 10 because of where it's at. But I had no doubt in my mind that this was going to be intense and it was going to be competitive. And wasn't Monday a perfect example of that? Sweden shorthanded, USA shorthanded. Neither team has anything to really play for with respect to needing to win. And that in itself was such a strong game. Mike Sullivan said after the game, our guys played hard, worked hard. I think the same thing can be said for Sam Hallam of Sweden. They played hard. In a game that didn't mean anything, like in terms of points or stature, it meant something to those players. And they played hard. And so I think that now you get to the intensity of Saturday night, the USA-Canada game. What I found fascinating was a couple of things I found fascinating about the whole thing. It didn't surprise me. I mean, they start the game, the Tkachuks get involved. I mean, that's what they're going to do. But after those 9 seconds, each team only took one penalty each the rest of the game. It wasn't a chippy affair. It wasn't an affair that you go, well, there was all kinds of, liberties taken. It was a hard game. It was a tight game. There wasn't a lot of space, but it was a highly competitive game. And certainly when we look at the outset of that and the U.S. trying to show, hey, you're not going to push us around. I don't know how the USA got in their head that Canada pushes them around. I mean, USA stood up to challenges. Canada just goes and plays. And I think Brandon Hagel said that. And if you want to play that way, we'll stand up to it. And I think that all well and good. I mean, the intensity, everything that it meant, USA, feeling that this was a big game to Brady Tkachuk's point. Before you even ask me, if the USA doesn't win on Thursday night, that Saturday game means nothing. It means nothing. It's just another game that the USA got pumped up for, and they couldn't win when it counted to beat the best when it counted.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that is, there's so many angles to this game tomorrow. I mean, the lead up, the decade without this generation playing in a game that now means everything. And you're exactly right. I mean, if these teams split 1-1, the Canadians are going to come back feeling pretty good about themselves, and it'll be the exact opposite on the United States side of things. But just as far as this game tomorrow goes, Craig, we know what the start of the game was like in Montreal. How do you think that'll be different tomorrow, considering the stakes that it is the final and everything that's transpired so far?
Well, I mean, everybody knows what's at stake. I mean, again, I'm going to preface my answer. I think all the pressure's on the USA. I don't, Canada been there, done that, won that. USA talked about winning it, never won it. And, I was asked this earlier today. They said, well, this group of players feels like it's their time. And I'll say BS. The 2002 group that played in Utah in the Olympics, they thought it was their time. The 2010 team that played in Vancouver thought it was their time. So just because they didn't win didn't mean they didn't win. So it's great. So this group thinks it's their time. Okay, show us. I don't want to hear the talk anymore. I want your actions will speak louder than any words. So how will it start? If I'm John Cooper, I can tell you what I would do. And John Cooper is done brilliant work with Tampa Bay, and he's done brilliant work here with Team Canada. I would start Cirelli, Hagel, and Bennett. I would just start it right off the bat. And they're the visiting team, so they have to put their lineup in first. And I would just say, what do you got? What do you got, USA? Here's what we got. We're going to set a tone here. And if you want to come out and try to do what you did on Saturday night, we're comfortable with that. And I think that Team Canada has every opportunity. And if he doesn't, come and set the tone. Put McDavid and Point and Stone to start the game, or go with Crosby, McKinnon, and Reinhardt. Like I think John Cooper has so many different ways he can go here to serve notice that we're playing the game on our terms, not on your terms. And I like the idea of Cirelli, Hagel, and Bennett starting the game just to start. Here's how we're gonna play hard. We're gonna play physical. We're gonna forecheck the heck out of you, and we're gonna be really good. I know Bennett didn't play on that line against the USA. Point was there. Point now with McDavid has looked really good. But I believe that, putting Bennett in there and watching what that Tampa Bay line did against the USA on Saturday, they carried significant play. And I think that's what Canada wants to do, is establish that we're territorially going to play it. We watched what happened on Monday. McDavid, McKinnon, Crosby, Reinhardt, everybody got moving. McCarr back in the lineup. I think that John Cooper and Team Canada are feeling bloody good about their chances to beat the USA once again.
Craig, I'm going to ask you, you've been involved in building teams before, in tournaments and whatnot. Do you think the Hockey Canada, the brass, Sweeney, the people that put this team together, do you think that they ever considered it could get to where it got on Saturday? And the reason I ask is I would think that if they thought that was even a possibility, that a guy like Tom Wilson would have been on this team.
Let me just say this about Tommy Wilson. We know how rugged and tough and hard-nosed Tommy Wilson is. Tommy Wilson's a hell of a hockey player.
He wouldn't be out of place at all.
Well, I have him on my team, period, full stop. It has nothing to do with what happened Saturday night. He was on my team. Listen, I had Suzuki, I had Wilson, I had Scheifele on my team right from the get-go. I also had Braden Point playing with McDavid. Finally, John Cooper got to that, and he's smart and everything. So it's not about me saying where I got it right, because there's areas where I got it wrong too. But the bottom line is, competitors are not going to back down from challenges. Anthony Cirelli's not backing down. Brandon Hagel's not backing down. Cole Parayko's not backing down. And what you want in any type of team building, when you're competing, listen, hockey's a nice game. It's a nice sport. At the core of it, it's a competition. If you're not going to dig in and compete, and you're not going to be willing to sacrifice and to give up some of your individual self to do what's best for the team, you're not going to win. Simple as that. And so I think that Canada's first focus is finding those competitors. So if we look through that team, who was going to back off? Doesn't mean you're going to win a fight, but you also know you're not going to back off. And Brandon Hagel said when he was challenged, it was like, yeah, let's go. Like, really? Let's go. Like, there was no back off there. And Matthew Tkachuk is going to play the way he wants. Drew Doughty has been interesting. He goes, I'll fight Matthew Tkachuk. And Matthew Tkachuk, Drew Doughty, I'll call it the conflict goes back a number of years when Matthew was with the Calgary Flames. You think Drew Doughty's backing down from anybody? Not a chance. So I think what you're trying to do is not look at saying, okay, you want to try to cover off different areas of your team. But for me, Tommy Wilson would be that. I think any iteration of Team Canada, a couple of things I just want to say real quick here. Two things. Number one, this country is passionate about hockey. You pick a team, there's going to be, they should have had this guy, they should have had that guy. Why not this? That's just what happens in Canada. That's a good thing. The second thing is, When Hockey Canada is putting together a team and they're looking at all the different possibilities, and trust me on this 100%, they pick their team and they have doubts. I'm not going to tell you they have serious doubts, but they have doubts when it's all, okay, We picked this guy. Can he do it? Are we sure? Did we do that? So there are always going to be some of those doubts that are going to go in when you're picking a team with such a depth and breadth of player. And I've said this many a times. For Canada, it's real simple. You either win or you don't. There's no, well, we played well, we just fell short. Well, we were right there with them, but we fell short. You win or you don't. That's how it is in this country. And it's not going to change, nor should it. And that's why when they're picking a team, you're looking at players that are going to dig in. I thought Brandon Hagel was fantastic. You know, we play for our country, we don't play for the cameras.
Who, through these 3 games, I mean, we could maybe touch on USA as well, but focusing on Canada, has there been any players that have left you wanting more so far, and you're hoping they can step it up in the championship game?
Before I answer that, one of the things I think, you get to a championship game, 2 days rest in between. I really believe that for John Cooper now, having those 3 games under his belt, the players have him. He's seen some different combinations work, some not work. To me, what you want to do is get into this game. You're going to have to look at shortening your bench. Like that has to be a possibility. So you want to know who your best 9 forwards are and your best 5 defensemen. That's what you want to know. And I think John Cooper has a full grasp on that. So that leads you to that. I mean, Mitch Marner I know he scored the winning goal, just hasn't been a factor in this tournament. Travis Konechny just looks like he hasn't been able to find any footing. Seth Jarvis is a healthy scratch right now. So, those are players. I think Colton Parayko's had his struggles, quite frankly, and I'm not saying this just because I'm on with you here in Winnipeg, but I mean, he's held back Josh Morrissey. I would put Josh Morrissey up with Drew Doughty, and I think I got a top 4, and then have Sanheim. And Colton Parayko would definitely be my 6th defenseman. Definitely, he's not. I would limit his ice time. Marner, I would say to Mitch Marner before that game on Thursday night is that we're going to use you in specialty situations. We'll have you on the power play. We'll have you killing penalties because he's really good. But if I'm putting together a line, and I want point now with McDavid, I'm putting Bennett up with Hagel and Cirelli. And Marner's going to be down the lineup. But I'll give him that time to be in those special areas. But those are the guys that I think have stepped up. I've been massively impressed with Brandon Hagel. I think Brandon Hagel has been outstanding for this team. Cirelli does what Cirelli does. He's been really good. But I have no doubt in my mind here that Brandon Hagel has cemented a spot for himself on the Olympic team.
Yeah, he has been, there's a lot of people that are familiar with him. We've seen him play some games with Tampa, but they're not on TV very often. We remember the big load that they traded to Chicago to get him. But I mean, the contract was a big part of that. A talented player, but he was making 1.5 for the next 2 years, and it really fit within the window. We're seeing now that they knew what they were doing by bringing a player in that can really impact the game in so many different ways. And even for a guy that had never had a fight, for him to stand up. And I mean, I think he's made himself, maybe more than any player in this tournament, Craig, some new fans across the country with the way he stepped up, answered the bell, and then what he's had to say when asked about it since then.
100% with you. And again, you get a platform, right? You get an opportunity to go out and play. And he's done that. And he's done it on the ice and off the ice. And again, I couldn't agree with you more. And he's a lock. Now we can talk about, he's a lock for the Olympic team.
Hey, this is done, you kind of mentioned, we haven't had a lot of penalties outside of the fights. I think the referees have done their best to let the players play. How different will this be from the Olympics next year? Is it NHL refs in the Olympics? So we will see something similar to this? Or just
NHL players are not going to the Olympics without the NHL officials. They're not going there.
So do you think we'll see more of this next year? That was established
long ago.
Yeah. I mean, we always know that the IHF events sometimes are different. Do you think this is a precursor to what will be a very similar Olympic tournament next year?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, the NHL referees have been in the Olympics and officials since 2002. I mean, there's none of this Canadian referee playing. No. The NHL players have said, we want the best officials here. And trust me, the IHF isn't putting forth non-NHL officials that are better than what they can get. The players aren't putting themselves at risk. So the other thing about the penalties is, the power plays can be so good. When you look at the talent that can be put out on the ice, you have to be very leery about taking penalties. So I think discipline has become a real significant focus for both these teams. And because they're smart players and they get themselves well positioned, they're not chasing the play. That's why we've seen some low-scoring games. That's why we've seen some games where there hasn't been a huge amount of or huge quantity of shots in games. Because teams are so good at transitioning and they're so good at taking away those shooting opportunities. And the same thing with penalties. You're not going to put yourself in that type of peril.
Craig, just quickly on the USA side of things, Kyle Connor's been in a little bit in the Mitch Marner role where he started off on that line, sort of come down. Although, being in the building here in Boston on Monday night for that game, because of some of the guys that were out, it seemed like it gave Kyle more of an opportunity to have the puck on his stick, make some plays. This is a huge opportunity for him. And everyone just wants to be part of the winning team. But just wanted to quickly ask you on what you've thought of Kyle's tournament through the 3 games. And, of course, we should mention Connor Hellebuyck, who could be the ace in the hole for USA, considering the up-and-down nature of what we've seen from Binnington.
Oh, listen, Connor Hellebuyck is the ace in the hole. Like Connor Hellebuyck, that's where Canada has to be a little bit leery, because in my view, Jordan Binnington has given up 6 goals, 2 in each game, that I looked at and go, oh, those are ones you need to stop. And don't tell me how good you are after you've let in a soft goal. Don't let the soft goal in, period. And I think that he's done that. And so when you look at Connor Hellebuyck, he doesn't do that. So for Jordan Binnington, I don't want to hear how good you are after you've let in a weak goal and how you responded and how you show, because when you're playing against Connor Hellebuyck, you're not going to get that opportunity, because Connor Hellebuck's not going to let one in that's weak. So there's no question that Connor Hellebuck's a massive ace in the hole. He was excellent on Saturday. I thought through the first 2 periods, he was really good for Team USA on Saturday. USA in the 3rd period were great defensively. Kyle Connor is a top-line player. But you come into this tournament and he doesn't get top line minutes. And so now they're asking players to do some different things. I mean, even in Winnipeg this year, as he's killed more penalties. He's been given a little bit more opportunity in that regard. He's done really well. But the way they set up their team with their top players playing in those areas, it hasn't afforded Kyle those opportunities to be there. And now the coach, does he have confidence to have him play in those other situations? And Kyle's not going to be one of those energy catalysts, go down and grind you. But I thought Monday night was a really good example of Kyle Connor when he has the puck, how dangerous he can be, how he can create offense. And again, how his confidence is when he has that puck and he's looking to make plays. And what's interesting now for Mike Sullivan, for him to have that view now of Kyle, Brady Tkachuk didn't practice on Wednesday. He didn't practice. So depending on what the health of players are, Matthew Tkachuk has a lower body injury. It's clear that Brady has a lower body injury. Kyle Connor could become a real key part of this in terms of filling in on that top line because of what his offensive abilities are.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, this is one of these games where things are going to happen and guys are going to be put in roles. And we're not talking 82 games. We're not even talking a 7-game series. We're talking about one game where someone can be the hero and make the most of that opportunity. Craig, this has been so much fun. Obviously, everyone's just focused in on the 4 nations. Just before we go, though, it's crazy that the Jets are playing in St. Louis. Somehow I don't think it'll be Binnington and Hellebuyck going at it on Saturday night. But 26 games to go, a team with a pretty comfortable lead right now in the West. What do you make of this final stretch for the Winnipeg Jets and Kevin Cheveldayoff? I mean, thoughts on what he might do? And, if you've been experienced in that role before, do you worry about shaking things up too much for a team that's been so good, so consistent all year long? Or is it time to really take a big swing and give this team the best chance, at least on paper, to bring a cup to Winnipeg?
Take a really big measured swing, not just a swing. You can get up there and be Dave. You can go up there and just flail away and try to, you can be like Giancarlo Stanton Giancarlo Stan's either going to hit it 400 feet or he's going to strike out swinging at balls that aren't anywhere close. Kevin, Kevin is not like that. But I believe a couple of things I think is you can't look. This team is really good, and the team, we know the players are under contract and everything, and you're having years out of players that are really significant. And I think that Kevin, he did it last year. He added Monahan, he added Toffoli. I think he's got to add some players. I'd like to see him add a defenseman. I'd like to see him add a player that can add a little bit of weight, a second line center, a second line winger that can add some weight into that second line. And again, this is a team now you got to take advantage. I don't think this is, we got some young players. Let's see what happens. Scheifele's having a great year. Kyle Connor's having a great year. Josh Morrissey, Neil Pionk, he's Gabe Velarde. Nikolai Ehlers. And you're not going to disrupt anything when you add good players. When you add good players, the other players go, holy geez, are we ever? They get jacked. They get excited. I remember when the Pittsburgh Penguins traded Colby Armstrong to the Atlanta Thrashers for Marin Hossa. And there was a whole lot of, oh, God, they're trading Sidney Crosby's really good friend. And I remember I was on the air and I said, listen, Sidney Crosby wants to win. And Marin Hossa is way better than Colby Armstrong. And Sidney Crosby and Colby Armstrong are going to be really good friends for a long time. And right now, Sidney Crosby's over the moon that they got Marin Hossa. Ray Sherrill phoned me. He goes, I'm so glad you said that because all I'm hearing about is the chemistry. Like, we know Colby's good. Marin Hossa. And I think that Kevin has an opportunity to do similar. When you add good players and competitive players, the other players on the team get wicked excited. Using a wicked comment because you're in Boston.
Hey, just before we go, is there a player too that, you see potentially available that would be a great fit, that would be one of those guys that might be able to put the Jets over the top?
Ryan O'Reilly.
He's a guy we've talked about a lot on this program.
No, right. A second line center. He's one. I'm also looking at the winning experience, being in that spot. Somebody that can come in and just say, "Hey, boys, here's what it is. Watch me." And Ryan O'Reilly, second line center, right in there.
Great stuff, Craig. Listen, thank you so much for the time. I always love chatting with you. Cannot wait for tomorrow, and can't wait for the stretch drive for deadline and. See what comes playoff time. Jets could win the West. A big advantage, I think, in getting that 1 versus 8 matchup when you look at those top 7 teams right now. So I imagine that'll be a real focus, and we'll look forward to talking to you down the stretch. Enjoy the big game tomorrow night between Canada and the States, and thanks again for the time, pal.
You're there in person. You'll be tingling.
Oh, I already am. I already am, to be honest with you. I have not been excited like this in I don't even know what I can compare it to other than obviously it's different for, Jets playoffs or something that you're really invested in. This has so much more to it. Like with all the political BS that's happened with our countries, it's a feeling unlike anything I've actually been around. And you can feel it out around this city right now with the fans that have come in for this game. I think it'll be unlike anything I've been a part of before.
Well, and you said you're tingling now. Trust me on this, Andrew. When you get into that building and when things start to go, you warm up, players come out, and then when they come out at the beginning of the game, you'll be tingling like your tingle now is pretty significant. Trust me, you'll go, geez, Craig told me it would be a bigger tingle. It will be.
I can't imagine what it's going to be like for the players. Craig, thanks again for doing this, bud.
Thanks.
Great stuff. There is the one and only Craig Button. So appreciative of him and coming on with us. With a great conversation about the Four Nations. And, of course, we can't forget about what's to come for the Winnipeg Jets when they resume the season on Saturday night in St. Louis. Still wrapping my head around that. I'm going to stick around Friday here in Boston to be able to do Lock Shop and, of course, Winnipeg Sports Talk and kind of wrap the tournament. And then should be back, hopefully, flights working in time for puck drop on Saturday night. And then we're back on Monday with the stretch to March, the trade deadline, and then, of course, the Stanley Cup playoffs for the Winnipeg Jets. Jeff Hamilton's going to join us in just a couple minutes. Let me thank our friends at Princess Auto for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Princess Auto is synonymous with Winnipeg, the home of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Princess Auto Stadium. And, of course, Princess Auto, founded in Winnipeg, headquartered in Winnipeg. and now coast to coast across the country, but with 3 Manitoba locations to serve you, where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Visit them in the city, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, or out in Brandon. And you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Our friends at Wallace & Wallace have been such great supporters of Winnipeg Sports Talk for years. And listen, they've been doing both fencing and overhead doors as the leaders in both since before, like we're into their 7th decade right now of helping Manitobans do that since the 40s. Now, if you need the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter's banging up your old one with this crazy cold, give them a phone call. They've got you covered with vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, wood fences. And if you need a new garage door, they've got the largest selection of overhead garage doors in town, which means one to perfectly match your home and look great and add value to it at the same time. 452-2700. Give Wallace & Wallace a call. They'll be happy to come down and give you a free estimate. You can also check them online, wallacefences.com, or pop by and see them on Lawson Crescent at their showroom just off of Kenaston. Of course, the deep freeze is still on. How's your car handling it? How's your battery handling it? I've told you, we've been getting lots of messages from WSDers going, I should have heeded Huss's advice earlier and gone and see Donnie and the folks down at Manitoba Battery. Manitoba Battery, now with 2 locations, Logan Avenue and Dovercourt Drive, is where you can shop local, support local, and get the best prices in town, period, on batteries of all makes and models, period. Beating the pants off the big box stores with the best service in town that you'd expect from a local business. Free delivery anywhere inside the city with any purchase over $60. It is just that easy. But of course, you can pop in for a free battery test to see how you're doing, if you're going to make it through winter. And of course, you can also just order online and get it delivered to you over at manitobabattery.com. And with the hammer coming up in just a couple minutes, got to thank our friends at F Apparel as well. I know it doesn't seem like spring or summer, but that is just around the corner, gang. And that means graduations. That means weddings. That might mean you needing to up your menswear game. No one does it better than F Apparel with custom suits beginning at $400. Chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and the biggest and best selection of menswear accessories in town. Check out their website at epphapparel.com for details on the free shirt and tie offer for upcoming grads. And, of course, a great deal for the wedding party when the fellas get their suits for the big day at F Apparel. Check them online or in person, 190 Smith Street, downtown, for the fellas at F. All right, let's hook up with my guy, Jeff Hamilton. Lots to dive into today with the Hammer. What's going on? How are you?
Huss, I'm doing great, man. Sun's shining. It's still pretty cold here, but the sun is in full effect. So it looks like the sun's in full effect. Oh, pick up my mic. Pick up my mic. That's the producer at play. Thank you, Remo. Yeah, things have been great, man. Things are going well, and I'm feeling healthy, which has been a challenge over these last few weeks. So yeah, feeling really good, man. I was thinking about you. I don't know if I need to get in with Cool Bet or what needs to happen here, but you've had probably the most exciting existence, which is pretty typical, but I don't know. It just feels like a little extra this week.
It has been a particularly good run. I had been planning on, some sort of a getaway during the winter, and then the Costa Rica thing happened, and that was amazing. But I mean, being the sports geek that I am, the opportunity to be here for these games is, it's something I'm still pinching myself. And it was so much fun to be in the building. Like, I got here late on Sunday, and then we were right into it on Monday. It was the holiday, but it was the doubleheader. And going in knowing that Canada-Finland meant everything. Canada wins in regulation, boom, it's USA-Canada, what we all were hoping we would get in the final. But if it didn't go that way, and it got a little sketchy there at the end of the third period with those 3 finished goals, and we were in a suite with a bunch of Finns, which kind of made it even more fun. But, knowing once that happened that we were focused on Thursday night, we were going to get this, it has been, it's been wild. And I was mentioning this to Craig Button and Remis earlier. We were out, like last night was Tuesday, so we went out for a nice dinner and then hit a couple bars. And, Canadians are still here. A bunch of Americans are coming in, like from other places. There's a lot of hockey fans, and there is a kind of a buzz about this game here in the streets that you can feel. But just from a perspective, Jeff, when you add in all the political BS that we're dealing with.
Oh man,
this is
Summit Series 2027.
It's got those vibes, to be honest. Certainly when you talk to the Canadians around here.
Absolutely, man. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if I've cheered for a hockey game in 10 years. Like, it's just that excitement for, Canada, US, that national pride. Obviously the start. I don't really hide my, I know it's an unpopular opinion, but I love fighting in hockey. I thought that was an incredible start. I think US needed it. I think Canada's going to benefit from it this time around. But I'm, for all, I feel fairly confident, Huss, to speak for everybody who wasn't in that arena for the Canada-US game in particular. That was where everybody wanted to be, man. That just felt like it had so much on the line, so much at stake, so much, pride. And, I joke about the Summit Series, but how much of a downer would it be, man, if it was anybody but Canada and US in the final? Like, it would be almost ridiculous. Like, I don't even, so like it played out, and, and good for Canada not to waste any time in flexing their muscles against the Finns. Yeah, it got pretty close call at the end. I'm thinking to myself, imagine being a coach on that team and being like, who can stop a goal from happening, please? It's like you have this unlimited options of who to pick. Why is this seem to be getting caved in here? I will end it on this though, Haas. I think you cool betted your way right through that game. Did you not call a 2-point from McDavid and a goal from Nathan McKinnon? Not saying that was the most unique of choices, but it cashed in pretty early.
Hey, it was a big boy game. We expected the top dogs on Canada to step up and exert themselves, and they did exactly that. And there was actually 3, and it was way too big of a line to bet that game. So it was, let's take Canada to win the tournament at plus 185, and good things happen in threes. So hopefully we will look back at that video from early Monday before the game as one that ran the table. You mentioned, that the fighting in hockey isn't a popular take. I'm not sure that game on Saturday didn't do more to show that there is a place, not necessarily gooning it up or anything, but there is a place for it. And I kind of think that moving forward with these best on best, and even in the National Hockey League, we might actually see a little bit more of that even into the Stanley Cup playoffs coming out of that. If you want to talk about selling the game, that was everywhere. And the big narrative online was how the National Hockey League was absolutely schooling the NBA on their All-Star weekend because of Canada and USA and the way things went in 9 seconds with 3 different separate skirmishes and dropping the gloves.
Yeah, we'll show them the NHL All-Star game and see if it's much better.
That's done.
It's kind of, it's kind of apples and oranges there a little bit. But I just think there's so many things that I think about this tournament. I think about the takeaways. How interesting is it going to be to go back into the dressing room? How interesting is Florida Panthers dressing room going to be? How interesting is Toronto Maple Leafs dressing room? Josh Morrissey's the nicest guy in the world. I don't see any friction between him and, Hellebuck, but there's real hatred between these sides. It's real. And I think that's an interesting part. Part of me too, you didn't have to ask me, Huss. You don't need to ask me. Get Sidney Crosby out of Pittsburgh. Today. This guy deserves to be on the best team in the National Hockey League. He deserves to be going on a long run into the playoffs. He's the best player in the NHL, and he always shows up for the biggest moments. If it's got to be in Winnipeg or wherever it's got to be, get that guy out of Pittsburgh, get him onto a team that's going to be into the playoffs. That, to me, is I think he's getting a feel for that.
Just on Sid, you asked when things were getting sketchy at the end of the game against Finland, who's going to be the guy that's going to help? Who was it? It was 87. Huge hit on Granlund, separates the puck, gets it, empty netter, game over. It was Sid that called game. And pretty interesting, when you focus in on Makar and obviously McKinnon and McDavid, who really stepped up and made and got that lead. When the chips are down in the biggest moments, it seems like 87 is still the guy for Canada. And much like setting up Mitch Marner's winner in OT against Sweden, where he didn't play for the first 6 minutes in overtime, and everyone's like, where the hell's Sid? There he was again.
McKinnon was going end-to-end that whole time.
Yeah, 3 times in a row.
It turned into a Sega game.
Yeah, everyone in Edmonton says he's a puck hog, by the way, although that is now diminished after Saturday. No one's thinking about what happened against.
I thought it was. Did you not think it was a little ridiculous? I get it. It's Nathan McKinnon, the speed. He's a one-man wrecking ball. I talked to people who are down there that say, I've seen him practice too. They say, watch this guy practice. Said the Bell seats were shaking when this guy was skating by. He didn't even understand why. So I understand why I had it, but I thought it was odd. It was one of those, Huss, if Canada doesn't win, it becomes about Nathan McKinnon, hogging the puck, but they won. So,
well, yeah, I know that people in Edmonton felt that, how do you not give it to McDavid on that 2-on-1? But to be honest, McDavid didn't play that particularly well, didn't really give him an obvious spot to do it. The defenseman took him, and it basically ended up being a challenge for Nate to score, which he didn't. And then, funny enough, we talk about locker rooms and legacies and all that, of which tomorrow's game will absolutely be impactful on. You have Mitch Marner, who has been kind of invisible through most of this tournament.
I think it's proof that you don't build your team around a guy like Mitch Marner this tournament.
Yeah, well, for sure. And now you'll see Austin Matthews on one side, who's been kind of quiet, obviously missed the last game. Mitch on the other side. One of those two guys is going to come back to Toronto labeled as the biggest joker, which would be fun for online discourse, right, but maybe not necessarily fair considering everything is going on. Just quick thoughts on tomorrow night. I don't anticipate we're going to see a start like we did on Saturday. And I think the fact that McAvoy was such a beast in that Saturday game. I asked Dusty today, have you ever seen Connor McDavid get hit like that? And he kind of thought about it and said, I don't think so. His loss is big.
Neil Pionk give him any good ones back in the playoffs, or is that just good coverage?
Listen, he hit him, but that was
that was a train. That was timing it and taking out the best player in the world.
It was something. And unfortunately for McAvoy, ended up taking himself out with the way that he's playing. But
and to have it in Boston, you know what I mean?
It sucks for him. And now there's all this question about Quinn Hughes. Although, just a quick update, he was just fired this over to me. For those of you wondering on what's up with Quinn Hughes, 48 minutes ago on the ice in Vancouver, not Boston, in a regular contact jersey with the Vancouver Canucks.
Is Bill Guerin still quote unquote working on it though?
You know what? He might be. He is. Bill Guerin's done. This is the other thing. And so after Saturday, I get up travel on Sunday. I get up on Monday morning. I'm flicking around the TV in my hotel room, and they're talking about the game on Fox News for 20 minutes. And Bill Guerin came on. Now, I watched most of this. I did not hear him say this, so I'm not sure whether this has been picked up from another interview or whatever, but it is being widely reported that Bill Guerin has said that the players are sort of really inspired by Trump's 51st state business and all that.
No, so I'm not here to defend Bill Guerin, but it was more of one of those I watched the interview and he doesn't the way that a lot of the articles that have come out, these articles that you know what it is, man.
Yeah, sensationalism, clickbait.
Yeah, and it's just half of them are lies just to click on it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. They connected what I believe was the patriotism, right? The tension between Canada and US right now. I'm not going to, get into the inviting Trump to the game, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But the tension there. But the stories, I remember the first story I read was that he was saying they directly correlated the comments of being the 51st state as the motivation for his players to to bring their A game or whatever. When no, he said they're inspired by the tension. right? The booing of the anthems, the obvious Trump, what he's saying on the daily, how it's affecting Canadians, how Canadians are treated. Like, here's the part I don't get. Isn't everybody more amped up? Like, if this wasn't happening in the political side of things, it'd just be a hockey game. Like, the Summit Series was awesome, in the 70s because of the political landscape around it. That's why we talk about it still. We're talking about this game because you have a president in our neighboring country who is not so subtly threatening to annex us as a country. So, like, again, it becomes this Canada, pro-American. Like, you didn't need pro-US. They already had it. Canada now, I'm not saying we didn't have patriotism, but you're seeing it a lot more on display. That's inevitably added that much more juice. So the take I saw from Bill Guerin wasn't so much like, oh yeah, we hate Canada. Yeah. They're just riding the wave that a lot of people are, including most fans.
No, that is fair. And that's why I said, like, I don't know, maybe he did a different interview that I didn't see, because I did see that one, and that certainly wasn't what I took out of it. But listen, they're happy to be at home. They are very focused on winning, and listen, two great teams going at it. Although I will say this, and I realize I'm very nervous about Connor Hellebuyck because we're now feeling what it's like to be on the other side playing against this guy, and the advantage that they have in net, and how Binnington has looked great at times and not great at other times, and that's certainly been a far cry from 37. But when we talk about everything that is going into this game, and Crosby and McDavid, like, outside of the goaltending, I have a hard time seeing these guys not finding a way to get it done and win that game tomorrow night.
I just don't want to say what I want to say because I don't want to jinx it for the country. You know what I mean? But if you look at the lead up to this game, you look at Brandon Hagel's comments. Brandon Hagel's been playing meh hockey, right? Like, but now he's a Canadian hero because he's playing for the crest on the front, right? Like, all the comments about, that's what I talked about, the animosity, right? The fact that the Tkachuk brothers and others were group texting each other, right? Plotting this thing, right? That's so against the button-up Canadian hockey, for the team, like, we're whatever, right? The best. I think it's really amped things up. And so I look at the
Hagel's quote was so good. They asked him about that. He's like, we're not playing for the group chat. We're playing for our country.
Exactly. We don't have any group chats going. That's what I mean. That's why he's being celebrated, right? Like, there's a lot of angst right now. There's a lot of tension right now. There's a lot of tension in our own country, right? This fear that the U.S. is, politics are moving, into Canada and whatever, right? So, like, there's just a lot of tension, and tension's good. Tension is good for sports, right? I'm not saying it's great for our politicians who have to work through these, these real life issues. But when you can boil it down to a hockey game, Huss, you can extract the fun stuff out of it and make it bigger than it is. The reality is nothing's going to change if Canada wins that game or if Canada loses that game. But the feeling that fans are going to have, this has now become personal. Right? Like, you joke about it at the start of the interview. Like, if I've joked about it on the phone with people. It's like, who I know from this, from the States, saying, if we win, we get Yukon territories, you guys get Hawaii. You know what I mean? Like, just these jokes, but it adds to what is already a fierce rivalry. So, like, I don't love the context, in the world that we're in right now, the confusion, the division. But I'm also not going to sit here and say that it doesn't add to a hockey game between two bordering countries, the two best countries in the hockey world.
We've never needed it more than tomorrow night.
Right? So that's the other part. You can fix a lot of things without fixing anything by winning that game. So that's the beauty of it.
It is going to be so awesome. Hey, real quick on the way out, I know Kyle Walters spoke earlier this week. What's the latest on the Bombers? They continue maneuvering through this offseason.
Yeah, like, I mean, what you see is kind of what you get. I mean, there's not a lot of options out there on free agency. Those cupboards have been picked. I mean, there might be some bargain bin opportunities. I don't see the Bombers necessarily adding anybody. It's interesting. Like, I've kind of, in a way, defended the Bombers a little bit here in that, like, I think they did a lot of smart moves last year to bring guys in to, expect guys to take bigger steps. But it's hard to look around the league right now and not look at the Bombers and be like, whoa, like that's that's a lot of moving pieces. There's some notable holes in the lineup now. The Canadian ratio is all of a sudden in question a little bit here with the loss of, guys like Ford. And so, I think it's, while I do think the Bombers are going to be competitive and good even, it's hard to look around the rest of the West and not see it improved. And I don't know, like, I think it's one of those things where I understand if fans have a little bit of cautious optimism maybe, or maybe even skepticism heading into the season here, because, you have a play caller who's never called a CFL offensive game, and Jason Hogan, you lost a lot of guys in free agency. You got a couple, good pieces to be sure. It doesn't hit, I guess, as the kids say, in the same way as it has in previous years.
Hey, just one more that I've got to ask you. About where the team is in regards to the cap. And we knew that in the middle of free agency, it seemed to go up. The Bombers haven't spent that. And Walters has been very clear going into this season that they probably be willing to spend over the cap. Why are they where they are right now? And how does that relate to this increase that seems to be greeted with skepticism amongst CFL GMs?
Yeah, I mentioned this last week, Huss, when we talked about it, or a couple of weeks ago, one of the shows. I think they're working under the understanding that, like they put out a press release that this is the new salary cap, but there's a lot of talk about potentially not being the salary cap, allocating money to other places. I always found it to be an interesting place to put the money. I think it's a valuable place to put the money if you're working off the assumption that every team is going to spend to the cap. But if you are a group of owners and you're sitting around your table together and contracts aren't visible and nobody is, telling you how much you have spent under the cap, it's pretty easy to take some of those gains and completely eliminate them. I'm not saying that's what's happening here, but the approach in Winnipeg under Wade Miller seems to clearly be a wait and see approach with this money. I mean, I don't think he's given from the way Walters was talking, he hasn't given the thumbs up to spend that money, which I think is odd given what you just said. Clearly Winnipeg hosting the Grey Cup this year and their desire to spend to the cap and even exceed it had it been normal, and to now hear that they're kind of holding their money close to their vest and they're not really sure to do with it and kind of waiting to be told what to do with it is odd, right? Because I tend to think it's kind of a shot against the Bombers, to be quite frankly with you. Like the Bombers have they're not a poor team anymore. They bring it. They're the number one attendance in the last couple of years. They sell merchandise off literally off the hooks. Huss, like, so the idea that they're not willing to spend $400,000 extra to boost the talent of their team, yeah, I think it should be questioned by fans. But again, I think it's not like they just don't want to spend it. I think there's a lot of confusion, and while we have press releases that sound like pretty factual information, this league, it can that can change very quickly. So Wade's a smart guy, so he's taking this wait and see approach. I guess we'll have to wait and see what comes of it, and try to figure out where the Bombers are in the salary cap and how close they are to what appears to be a significant raise.
Well, we'll kick that around the next few weeks as we continue through the CFL offseason, but tomorrow we'll be focused right here on Boston and Canada and the U.S. Hammer, great stuff as always. Thanks for doing this. Enjoy the game tomorrow, and I'll see you back in the peg next week.
Always a pleasure, my man. I'll go. I'll double up on whatever bets you got brewing for Thursday. Just let me know, eh? Let me know.
Let's do it.
Have a great one.
All right. Speaking of those, we will hit the cool bet lines later on, and make sure to pay attention to the socials tomorrow morning. We'll try and crank out a couple more winners for you before the gold medal game. I want to hit you with the why not question of the day tomorrow, right now. Why not question of the day for not Autocorp, but Waverly and McGillivray. Right now, in the chat, who will be the hero tomorrow in the game? And I'm leaning Team Canada, obviously, for obvious reasons. So I think my thoughts are on Canadians, but if you feel that it might be 37 from the Winnipeg Jets or someone from Team USA, feel free to go for that. We'll get to fan feedback, brought to you by Fans First in just a minute. In the chat, who will be the hero in the gold medal game tomorrow in the Four Nations tournament? Listen, tomorrow is going to captivate the entire country. There'll be parties everywhere, certainly back in our city. And if you are planning on having some of the fellas over for a few cold ones, keep it Canadian, keep it local, and pick up some 1919 or maybe some generic lager from our friends over at Little Brown Jug. Here's a big cheers to them.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, and listen, as you want to get ready for the game tomorrow, I know there's been a huge run on all of the jerseys and the Four Nations gear that's come into Royal Sports, but Royal Sports has been the home of Hockey Canada gear for years. If you are hoping to get your hands on some Canada gear for the game tomorrow night, Royal Sports is there for you. You can pop by 750 Pembina Highway or give them a call. And when you're there, in addition to Canada gear, don't miss the incredible display on the wall for the Winnipeg Jets, including so many exclusive to Royal Sports collabs with New Era Jets hats that you will not find anywhere else on the planet. Some amazing combos, color schemes that are waiting for you there in multiple different logos for the Winnipeg Jets. Tons of new bomber gear as well coming in, especially with some really sick stuff from New Era for the upcoming season. That's there for you. But with our focus on Four Nations, Royal Sports, get it before it's completely cleaned out tomorrow. And of course, for hockey players, we're talking hockey, the number one hockey superstore in town for over 50 years. Speaking of the game tomorrow, my good friend Andrew Shevchuk from Boston Pizza fired me over a message and said that the BP sports bars last Saturday were as packed and as loud and crazy as any of the crowds they've seen, and that includes incredible Jet playoff runs and Olympics. BP tomorrow night is going to be cranking it up for a sure-to-be classic. Now, the game will be cranked up in all the big screens in the sports bars and in the restaurants. So if you're thinking about, maybe wanting to have your kids involved in an atmosphere that will bring everybody together, think about popping into your local BP on the restaurant side with the kids that are under 18, enjoying some of those world-famous BP wings and gourmet pizzas and more, and having them be part of it. Of course, all the sports bars are going to be packed. You'll add the wings, the pizza, and of course, some ice-cold schooners. And here's something to know you. All BP fans can enter to win a Canadian hockey holiday to see your Winnipeg Jets in Vancouver on March 18th. And they got a new February pasta menu as well. Loaded beef penne bake, butter chicken fettuccine, and the new Canada Red raspberry frostbite cocktail. So tomorrow night, get together with your gang. All BPs, all TVs, full sound in the bars and the restaurants for tomorrow night's gold medal game of the Four Nations tournament. All right, let's get to fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, and a ton of feedback on our question of the day. Of course, fan feedback is brought to you by Fans First, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market. with no added fees. What you see is what you pay, which is a stark contrast to most of the other ticket resale sites. And it is by far the best place to sell tickets if you've got an extra pair, with the best customer service and quick payment the day after the game right into your account. All right, let's see. Miller Time is looking at point. I don't mind that. Hey, listen, I'm the biggest Helly guy in Eaters We Trust. Says Helly's going to be the hero. I'd prefer he save that until the Stanley Cup playoffs. Mary Jane, love Mary Jane's thoughts on this. Sid the Kid, and it's hard to argue. Rat River Rebel is saying Brad Marchand. Jet Effect says McJesus calls game. Rob Mahoney giving some love to Kyle Connor. As I said, like Hellebuck, let's save that for the playoffs and the stretch to the Stanley Cup playoffs. Charlie Defoe, how about that? How cool would this be? J-Mo, Josh Morrissey to score the big one. Corey says Makar. And, of course, Makar wasn't in the game on Saturday night. What might he do tomorrow? And Big Uke says would be real fitting to be Sidney Crosby. Cannot disagree with that. Rick Benson, Fastedly, also saying could be Marchand. Wouldn't that be something? The Boston Bruins legend becoming a Canadian legend in the TD Garden here in Boston. Keep your thoughts coming on who will be the hero tomorrow. For fan feedback, brought to you by Fans First, by fans, for fans, no fees. All right. We are going to talk Jays for a few minutes coming up in about 20 with Josh Goldberg. But I definitely wanted to touch base with Jamie Thomas. He was, of course, at practice today, following the teams. He was in Montreal, and we spoke to him before the game on Saturday. So we're going to have to go back to the weekend and then get Jamie's thoughts on tomorrow. Let's bring him in. You can check out all the content on the Winnipeg Jets channels as well as winnipegjets.com. Jamie joins us now. What's going on? You having any fun following this tournament around? Sorry, you were muted there. What did you say?
I said Bobby Orr's Canadian.
Yeah. Did you like that?
Oh, that's like you've said a lot of great things over your career. That's number one on the list. That I don't even know how that video is not raw by now. Like it's not. Sorry, what's the term again?
Oh, viral.
Viral. That's the one. Viral. Raw.
Yeah.
Viral. How's that not viral by now? Because that is genius.
For folks that missed it, before the USA Sweden game, we were outside of TD Garden, and there were all these American fans getting pictures in front of the Bobby Orr statue. And these guys, shout out to the guy in the middle, though. He was wearing a Hellebuck jersey, which I did like. Yeah. Have actually seen quite a few of those, as we've gone through the tournament. But yes, they're, in front of Bobby Orr with the flag, and I just had to record it and did a Bobby Orr is Canadian, to which they laughed. And then a guy beside me goes, I was going to come back at you, but I've got nothing for that. No. And we all had a laugh, and then we went in for the game. Jamie, tomorrow is going to be a night I don't think we'll ever forget. Mm-hmm. I imagine Saturday was a night that you will never forget, being in the Bell Center. Just quickly, give us your experience to being in that building, the incredible pregame, and then the chaos that ensued when they finally dropped the puck.
Yeah, I remember how I said before, even before the Canada-Sweden game with Mario Lemieux coming out, that was the greatest night of my life. Well, then Saturday became the greatest night of my life because it was one thing after another in terms of the atmosphere, and then you never saw that in a million years that happening. Sure, the first fight, okay, I get it. That Brandon Hagel throwing his hand, going come on to the crowd, and them losing their minds, and then Matthew Tkachuk and Sam Bennett dropping it, and then JT Miller making probably the dumbest mistake of his career, fighting Colton Parayko, a bad choice, a bad dancing partner, and wearing that afterwards. But it was electric. That building is, and I said Wednesday it was the loudest building I've ever been in. And then Saturday it became the loudest building I've ever been in. So I'm just curious how Boston's going to respond. I felt the crowd was okay in the USA-Sweden game. I thought it was okay. I'm hoping they take it to another level. I'm sure there'll be more Canadians in the crowd for that one, including yourself, obviously.
It's going to be ramped up 100 times. I mean, the thing about that was we knew after Canada won in regulation, the final was set. Yeah. I mean, the U.S. was able to not dress Austin Matthews. Connor Hellebuck was in the press box. I mean, it was like, listen, it was still an intense game, and the guys
still
out there were
was,
playing
yes.
it. People were into it. There was a bunch of USA chants, all that. It will be nothing like it was on Monday night, tomorrow night. And I think part of it will be the Canadian contingent that'll be all fired up. But I think we all know that with everything going on around this series, it had to end this way, Jamie. And I think most of these people have also seen what happened in the Bell Center. And I think the American fans will be ready to raise it up. I am preparing for an atmosphere unlike any that we've seen before. And listen, we've been in some of the greatest hockey environments ever right here in right back home in Winnipeg in the playoffs. And people around the league say there's nothing like the whiteout. The thing about it is we're talking about two club teams playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs. There's just so much more to this. And a lot of things that don't have a lot to do with hockey, combining it with the fact that it's been since the 2014 Olympics, we've had true best on best. This entire generation of players hasn't had a chance to play with Sidney Crosby. Many of the young players with some, like on the U.S. side of things as well. I mean, it is the perfect end to what has been just an absolute home run for the National Hockey League right now over this last week and a half.
Yeah, the NHL and the NHLPA have to be pretty pleased with themselves right now. And, you know, I'll even go back to the Wednesday when they made the announcement that World Cup of Hockey was coming back in 2028. And then you follow that up with the game that you had with Canada, Sweden, and then the U.S. And as you said, every game has had something to it and some quality to it, but nothing what we're going to see tomorrow. And, you know, the conversation before John Cooper stepped to the podium here this afternoon was this might be the fastest game we've ever seen, ever. Like Saturday was fast, but the pace is going to be even higher if you can believe it. And I don't know how much more you can sell this game. And the thing is, we don't have to sell it. People are going to watch. And that's the best part of it. And, you know, John Cooper saying this tournament's done more for hockey than over the last 10 years. There's just repeated, constant themes of how great this tournament is. And every player saying, I didn't realize, I knew it was going to be good, but I didn't know it was going to be this good. I just think we're in for another special night. And I'm glad you're here. I'm glad people at home are going to be able to watch it. You know, the constant theme I get from people, you know, they're getting tired. They don't want to. They're tired of cheering against Connor Hellebuck. You know, they can't wait for that to be over soon.
Yeah, we're learning what it's like to be on the other side this week.
Yeah, like one of the best tweets ever came from our social media crew, and you know, talking about this is what it's like to play against Helly. That's one of the all-timers we've had at this event.
It was hilarious that happened because I was out at a bar back in Winnipeg on Saturday night watching the game, and literally everyone was saying the exact same thing. I mean, it perfectly encapsulated what every single Jet fan was feeling watching the Canadians try to find a way to get to him in that third period. And listen, it's been a great tournament for Helly. I thought Kyle Connor in the second half of the Sweden game really seemed to look more like the Kyle Connor. And again, like Craig Button said it, you know, you have all these first line players that sometimes are in different spots and there is a little bit of adjustment, or sometimes you just don't see them as much as you had before. But on the Canadian side of things, it's been a real, like, not that he needed a coming out party, if you will, Jamie, because we know how good Josh Morrissey is. But I mean, I was with a couple guys that are big Leaf fans that watch a ton of hockey. They just don't see a lot of the Winnipeg Jets. And they said, I cannot get over how great Josh is. He's been brilliant for the last number of years, but man, is he having a tournament. And they needed it so much considering the status of Makar.
Yeah, I don't think he got enough credit for how well he played in the U.S. game, right? I think that's based on the fact that they lose that game, but I thought he was tremendous. And the fact that he had to step into Makar's position on the number one power play. And now they didn't, albeit they didn't get a lot of opportunities, but he had the most minutes of all the Canadian defensemen on Saturday, played solid minutes. I believe the second most minutes on Monday against Finland. He's just been steady the whole time. And that I think they found a great pairing with him and Colton Parayko. That's been a standard throughout this tournament, outside of the 47 minutes they had to play without Shea Theodore in the opener against Sweden. So I think he has been tremendous. You could tell yesterday how excited he was with that opportunity. He's played some big games, played in the 2015 gold medal game in the World Juniors, played for gold at the World Championships, played in Game 7 of the that series against Nashville. But this is as big as it gets for Josh Morrissey in his hockey career. So you could just sense the excitement. And now the best part, I thought, talking to him yesterday was just getting used to being around Sidney Crosby and just how excited he was at the start. And he said it was a pinch me moment. And now, you're just used to it. Now you're used to being around these guys. And what a great opportunity for him to be around a Crosby and a Brad Marchand and a Drew Doughty, guys who have won Stanley Cups and gold medals. This will only make Josh Morrissey better. And it's the same thing for Kyle Connor and the same thing for Connor Hellebuck. This event will make them better and give them that confidence, even more confidence than they have going into the playoffs, which only bodes well for the Winnipeg Jets as things get around. And I found it even more interesting today. Connor Hellebuck is the only person. He's talked to two people from the Winnipeg Jets. He's talked to Kyle Connor and Scott Arniel. He said, I talked to Scott Arniel just about what the plans are this week. He has not talked to anybody else, which I find fascinating. And it just speaks to the focus that he has at this event right now.
That dude is so locked in. I mean,
it's
just like 24/7 when he's with the club. I can't imagine what it's like with him. Although we've seen his family around.
Yeah, I ran into Chuck in the elevator the other night. It was fantastic. I haven't met Chuck yet. And just I walked in, did a double take, turned around. I'm like, Chuck!
Everyone knows Chuck now. But listen, it's a great experience for the families. But for Connor Hellebuck, maybe more so than anybody in this tournament, that his headspace is purely on puck drop tomorrow night, stopping that puck. And I would imagine he'll probably get Saturday off. I'm not expecting a Binnington-Hellebuck rematch on Thursday night in St. Louis after this tournament is done. But what was just kind of the vibe around Canada today, and thoughts just to fill us in a little bit on what John Cooper had to say about the big rematch tomorrow night?
Listen, I could listen to John Cooper talk all day.
He's a brilliant guy.
What a find, or what? I'm not saying a find, but just what a gold mine he is for Hockey Canada. And today he was asked about, do the players and the coaches know what this means to the country, right? And considering all that's going on, and he said it very well about how everybody right now is just worried about the hockey game inside the walls, what's going to happen on the ice. And then they understand, should they be able to pull it off, what it will mean for the rest of the country. He's just so well-spoken on so many different ways that it's been really cool to watch how he handles everything this week, and how he treats this game as an honor, and how excited they are as a coaching staff to be out there. So I just think it's a confident group. Sidney Crosby was asked again about, playing with a bunch of guys that are looking up to him, and, he realizes his age, and he takes every game of this stature the same way. It's a new experience for him. And that's, to me, wild, considering what he has experienced in his career, that each one he still gets excited about. And, you saw that video about with his sister telling how proud she is of him, and on Twitter, and I appreciated him before. I appreciated him a whole lot more of how he just welcomes every chance to play for Canada. Also, big appreciation for Brad Marchand, what he is and what he brings every day, and how he's enjoying every last minute of it. Seth Jarvis has been tremendous to deal with at this event. So we're lucky as hockey fans, and certainly those of us who cover this game, to be at this event, because it's so rare that we get to be, in a competitive environment like this, unlike the All-Star game. To be around these players has been something else.
Well, for sure. I mean, listen, it is part of, there's a lot of national pride, but there's a lot of local pride. I mean, I know Jet fans are very proud of Hellebuck and Kyle Connor, and obviously Josh Morrissey. And then, from being a Winnipegger and a Manitoban, to all of a sudden be able to cheer Mark Stone for a change is nice.
Right.
He's been great. Obviously, Seth Jarvis, and then Travis Sanheim as well from out in Elkhorn. I mean, there's so many angles, and I think wherever you are from in the country, there's similar stories like that. Jamie, fill people in on what you have cooking over at WinnipegJets.com and all the socials as we head into the grand finale tomorrow night here in Boston.
Yeah, you can go to the website right now. Like the raw from Josh Morrissey yesterday is still up on the website. I wrote a feature about Josh Morrissey yesterday about this big game coming up, and I got some good stuff from Connor Hellebuck's American teammates like Noah Hannafin and Matt Boldy. Matt Boldy, of course, has ran into Connor Hellebuck quite often in his young NHL career and understands what it is and the benefits of having him behind him. So I'll have a Connor Hellebuck feature written up. Another one, because that's, I've written a million of them already. Love how Mitch wrote about, that's exciting about, Adam Lowry coming back to the lineup. It's crazy to think that Jets will be back in action. On Saturday, there's the Morrissey feature, but I'll have something on Connor Hellebuck again today, because you just can't seem to write enough about the best goalie in the world and people appreciating what he is and how nice it is to have them or have him on their side in the biggest game of the year for everybody.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we can certainly not just pencil, but pen in Eric Comrie for the game. It'll be interesting to see, whether Josh and Kyle are there in St. Louis, are playing in the game, or potentially getting the night off after a hectic and such a quick turnaround. Like I was stunned. I was just getting my travel plans coming back on Saturday. I'm like, what? There's a game that night? Mm-hmm. That being said, I think we've all missed the Jets. It's been amazing having these games, but there's been some off days. Back at it, pushed to the trade deadline, and 26 games to lock up the Western Conference and have the path to the Stanley Cup go through Canada Life Center, which is very much on the table this year. JT, enjoy this evening. Thanks so much for doing this, and hopefully we'll maybe see you tomorrow before the big game.
I expect you to be on the Jumbotron tomorrow, so no pressure. With that big tree, Dustin Nielsen, that shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, well, no kidding. He's he's huge.
That guy blocks the sun. I forget half the time how big that guy is.
2 days late, it was funny story. So Dusty was supposed to come out on Sunday, but he was taking his daughter to the PWHL game, so he was coming later on that night, and then was going to fly with Jake in on Monday morning. Well, of course, flights delayed, canceled. So they moved him to the next day, which meant that he was going to miss the Canada-Finland game and the USA-Sweden game, and then that was canceled as well. So we could tell in the chat that he said, well, I can make it, but it's going to be a 24-hour flight, 3 stops, and you just tell that the white flag was just about there.
Yeah.
We let him sit on that for about an hour, and then I went over to Expedia, and I'm like, you can get to Calgary tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. You'll be here by 10, and lo and behold, the big guy rolled in last night. We got the whole crew here together and ready for tomorrow. Cannot wait. So listen, pal, you have a great one this evening. Rest up. Tomorrow's going to be a special one, and can't wait to be talking Jets with you post this tournament next week when we're back in Winnipeg.
Thanks for having me, buddy. Enjoy the game tomorrow.
You bet. Cannot wait. There's Jamie Thomas. You can follow him on X, of course, and check out all of his work from the Four Nations, focusing on the Winnipeg Jets over at winnipegjets.com. All right, we are going to have Josh Goldberg jump on. We had to talk about this Jays situation with Vlad Guerrero. We'll do that for a few minutes, and we will get to the cool bet lines and check out the way things are looking for tomorrow's gold medal game. But listen, Connor McDavid spoke earlier today for a little bit about the tournament. But Remo, what's this clip from Matthew Tkachuk? I mean, I'll say one thing about the Tkachuk brothers. When they speak, we want to hear what they're up to.
We're just getting a text from Jamie. Big thanks to him for coming on. I guess the comment is about the Brandon Hagel quote from yesterday saying, we don't have group chats. We're just doing it for the country. And Tkachuk, this was his response. We'll play that before getting to Josh. Here's Matthew.
I mean, maybe their team doesn't like each other then if they don't have group chats. But, I think that, that's just a player, and enjoying those opportunities. So I think that our team does not care about anything that they say. And there's been a lot of chatter and talk from individuals, but we care about one thing in this room, and we have millions of people that are watching us and supporting us around this country, and we're very prideful in playing for them and the guys in the room. So it's an opportunity of a lifetime for us.
All right, there's public enemy number one north of the border, Matthew Tkachuk. Just before we bring in Josh Goldberg and hit the Blue Jays for a minute, here's a quick one from Connor McDavid on the tournament so far, and looking forward to an expansion of this tournament in future years.
Is this something you would like to see the NHL bring back in the future at some point? maybe in replacement of an all-star game?
I'd love to see all countries represented. And it's great that it's best on best, and it's, 4 nations and stuff like that. It's been really, really exciting, but there's some great players sitting at home. And if we want it to be the biggest stage in the world, then you need everybody involved. So I think the league announced something about a World Cup. That's really exciting. I'm not sure you could do this every single year. It's been pretty taxing, obviously, see you guys going down and getting hurt. But it goes to show that, how much guys care about playing for their country, how much pride they play with, while they're wearing the jersey. So I think with the Olympics and the offset of the World Cup, I think we'll get enough.
All right, there's McDavid. Dude looks focused and locked in. Going to need him at his best tomorrow if Canada's going to win this Four Nations tournament and send the Americans in the building home upset, and the Canadians can take over Boston tomorrow night celebrating. Not a lot of celebrating in Toronto right now. In fact, when we speak of the Toronto Blue Jays, I'm not sure I can remember a time where the fan base was more jaded. And it got worse yesterday with the news that there was no contract extension for Vladdy Guerrero. And he reportedly will head to free agency at the end of the year. Let's bring in our pal Josh Goldberg to get the latest on the Jays. Tough. Listen, it's been a tough run for Jays fans for a while, but I'm with a bunch of guys from Toronto here, or some of them from Toronto, hardcore Jays fans. They're just absolutely disillusioned right now. Josh, what's the feeling? What's the reaction been in the GTA about the latest developments, or lack thereof, with the team and star hitter Vladdy Guerrero?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of a lot of different things. I think obviously anger is one that is pretty apparent. Like you said, people are disillusioned, frustrated, all of those things. And I don't think that many people are shocked or even surprised. Like, this has been building for a while. It's become pretty clear that this front office for the Blue Jays, for whatever reason, there's been some inconsistencies for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at points during his career at the plate, but they've never really felt connected to him and really invested in him. And yesterday they said some stuff and, tried to maybe paint the picture that they went above their comfort zone, even though that apparently wasn't even remotely close to what he was looking for. But like after last year, there's talk about generational talent, and Mark Shapiro was really evasive about it. And it was just an easy move to back your best player, and they kind of didn't do that. And they took him to an arbitration hearing after a less than stellar season. They didn't do that this time around, but reading between the lines, reading the tea leaves, it never felt as though they were going to go to a point that was going to get this done, especially once you get this close to free agency. It requires an overwhelming offer. And they missed the boat. They probably should have tried harder a couple of years ago. It would have been risky, and people would have been critical of it after he struggled. But that's kind of the game you play when it comes to these young superstar level players. You either sign them well before they're eligible to become free agents, or you risk them getting close and seeing the carrots being dangled a little bit, and the prospect of 29 other teams stepping up to the plate and offering you the moon and the stars is very appealing. And now the Blue Jays are going to be in a place where, when they couldn't get it done negotiating against nobody, you can't really like their chances negotiating against the rest of the league.
Just in my conversations with Jays guys here in Boston and, some friends back home, the thing that really hit home was Vladdy doing his interview going, well, when I'm somewhere next, I want to go where I have the opportunity to win. It was like the extra kick in the nuts to everybody about, oh, well, not only am I not want to be around here, but it's because this team isn't going anywhere, if you read between the lines. And, it's shocking with the excitement, this team was a World Series favorite a couple years ago. I mean, you had this core group of young players coming up that might have been the most exciting in baseball. And unless they do something this year, Josh, it'll all be over without a single postseason win, which in the expanded playoff era is absolutely stunning. I will say this, though. I do have time for the argument that this might not be money well spent. Like, I'm not sure. If you're going to sign Vladdy to a 12 or a 13-year deal, I mean, never mind how that's going to look in the last couple of years. How might it look in 2 or 3? I mean, he hasn't been consistent. His weight has fluctuated all over the place. He's been injured at times. I'm not sure. Well, I'll ask you. I mean, do you believe that the Jays ever really were committed to investing to keep him here, or they kind of thought that it probably wouldn't be money well spent, and they're just trying to say they did everything they could to at least save some sort of face amongst the fan base?
I think they were committed to a point. Like, I don't think that this front office, you can criticize them for lots of stuff, and a lot of people do criticize them for some of the terminology that they use, like their internal valuations and sticking to their process. And they dropped that yesterday. And Ross Atkins talked about, this is still at the end of the day running a business. And I do think that there is legitimate validity to arguments about how a deal of that length would age for a player of this caliber. I totally get it. And I don't think that this is a situation where you just sign him to, you hand him a blank check and give him whatever he wants. Like, I think, there was a number. There was probably a number that would have made sense to me. Would it have been more than was ever previously thought? Probably. And again, that's where you get into trouble when you get this close to free agency. But yes, like, it never really felt that they were prepared to go to an uncomfortable place to get a deal done.
Do we have any idea what the ask was of Vladdy, or what the Jays were willing to give up? And if not, how soon are we going to get those leaks?
We're still waiting on that. And obviously everyone's waiting on that with bated breath. He said they weren't close, and I'll take him at face value there. And is that $50 million? Is that $100 million? Like, it's probably a wide gap. And yeah, like you said, it was like, I saw spring training content today, videos and stuff, and it just was harder to get excited about stuff, because even if Guerrero was signed, the prospects for this team this year aren't particularly great. Like, the ceiling is maybe you make the playoffs. Like, I don't think this team is capable of contending for the division. And without him signed, and Bichette's not going to be signed, and you've got some other aging guys who are coming up to the end of their contract. Like, it's weird. They made some moves this offseason. They signed Santander for 5 years. They signed Jeff Hoffman for 3 years. The direction it's like a rudderless ship right now. It doesn't really make sense. Like, they're making moves like they have foundational pieces already signed, but they actually don't. And then a year from now, like, Anthony Santander is going to have 4 years left on his deal. And what's the just state of affairs going to be? Like, there are no real easy answers to any questions right now for the Blue Jays. Like, they're just in such a state of uncertainty that nothing would surprise me over the next 6 months. Like, if they traded a half dozen players, including Vladdy, like, that wouldn't surprise me in the least bit before the trade deadline.
Something tells me they might need to add a few more loony dog days to the schedule this year to put a few more asses in seats. Josh, thanks so much for doing this. We'll look forward to catching up more throughout spring training. But it's a big Jays day, a big Jays news day yesterday. And despite all the hype around the Four Nations tournament, we really appreciate you jumping on to give us the latest on another whiff by the Jays front office.
Yeah, and happy to do it anytime, Huss. Talk to you soon.
Thanks so much. There's Josh Goldberg. Great to have Josh on the program. You can give him a follow at jgoldberg12 on X, and check out his work over at The Score. All right, let's get Remis back in here. And Reem, it's man, like the conversations today. I mean, Jamie And the Jays was a nice little break just to kind of get myself down, because from talking to Craig and Hammer and Jamie and thinking about the wait for another 28 hours until this game, listen, we're in a good spot. It's going to be fun, but puck drop cannot come soon enough. Can't think about a game that has been so highly anticipated by literally everybody north of the border. But as we've been talking about, also will have as much attention south of the border as maybe any game we've had in a couple decades.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of people tune into this. I mean, you start a game with 3 fights in 9 seconds, gets people talking, but also just the caliber of play that we've seen from the top players in the world on each side. We do have a bit of a resolution here to Quinn Hughes watch, Hustler. In the last 30 minutes, Pierre LeBrun putting out on X, Team USA has been informed Quinn Hughes not traveling to Boston to join team. He wasn't medically cleared. USA is still looking at bringing in a couple of other players just as insurance because of illness going around. And Pierre LeBrun adds he spoke with Hughes' agent, Pat Brisson, who said it was a very difficult decision that Hughes really wanted to join, but the reality is he still isn't medically cleared and likely wasn't going to play unless they had a D injury or illness. So tough decision, but the decision has been made. He won't be joining USA. He practiced today in a regular jersey after the
interesting
non-contact.
that they say he wasn't cleared on the same day that he has shed the non-contact jersey and was a full participant with the Canucks.
I think that's just the way of saying of them putting the blame
he's not
on the
flying
doctors.
across he's not flying all the way across the continent
to not
play and then have to go all the way back. Because, like, listen, we're talking about this game on Saturday between the Jets and the Blues with the possibility, I mean, I think there's zero chance that Hellebuck plays, but the possibility that maybe Josh Morrissey and Kyle Connor might be given the night off and can get back to Winnipeg and get ready for that game on Monday after a little bit of a scaling down, or just a couple days after the gold medal game. The Vancouver Canucks don't have that sort of a luxury. They're in playoff mode right now in a very, very tight race. They need Quinn Hughes to be ready to go as soon as possible, and they'll need him on Saturday if he's able to play against the Vegas Golden Knights. So I sort of get why it didn't seem like it was very realistic that he'd travel across the continent. I mean, if he's in New York as opposed to Boston, maybe this is a different story. He's in Vancouver right now. So doesn't look like Quinn Hughes will be a part of the festivities tomorrow. And on tomorrow's show, we'll get the latest from here in Boston as to whether there is any more emergency backups for the United States. But based on the roster that we saw finish up against Sweden, what we've learned with the Tkachuk brothers expected to play, Austin Matthews expected to play, with the exception of Charlie McAvoy, who will not return. And he's actually still in hospital here in Boston, dealing with an infection on an upper body injury. Should have all systems go for Team USA and, of course, for Canada, as opposed to Saturday's game. Cale Makar will be in the lineup, which is a big boost. All right, Rio, let's get to the Cool Bet lines and let's focus in on this game. Again, a huge shout out. I mean, obviously, I've had a great relationship being an ambassador for Cool Bet for a number of years, doing what we do with the Lock Shop. I've been to some great spots with them. This honestly takes the cake. And it's a great reminder for people that like to, throw a bet down on the Jets. Obviously, we have fun doing the WST exclusives, focusing on things that, kind of matter to Winnipeggers. But check that promotions tab, because there are people here right now that entered a contest because they bet $10 on an NHL game and won a trip to the Four Nations. There's some incredible promotions throughout the year with some really unique experiences. So if you're looking for a book that obviously has great customer service, lines, all those things, but also the opportunities to come to places like this for massive sporting events, coolbet.com is the place that you're going to want to check that out. All right, Remo, do we have a pick'em here? Am I looking at that right? 108 on either side?
That is correct. That is
Yes.
a pick'em.
I mean, should it be any other way? I don't think so. This started off as USA minus 115, Canada minus 102. Yesterday, I saw that Canada had actually got the minus 112, so a very slight favorite and the U.S. was about minus 106. Let's just leave it here. Pick them. Pick the team you think is going to win. Lay on it at minus 108. The total for this game is 5.5. Wouldn't be surprised if the under comes in on that. And then again, of course, you've got the money line. But right now, again, if you haven't played a cool bet before, you can use the promo code WST. Get a 100% bonus on your first deposit, up to $200. I'm really liking my Canada to win at plus 185 before the Finland game, Remo, considering what that's done to the line. But if you can, click on that. Let's see if we've got the point and goal props up yet.
We have points, goals, assists, shots.
Let's go to the goals first.
Oh, man, look at those. They must think it's a low-scoring game, huh?
Yeah, it looks like it. I mean, just if you can read those out, I mean, what is it?
Sure. McKinnon plus 205 to score. McDavid plus 210. Austin Matthews plus 225. Point plus 275. Crosby plus 280. Matthew Tkachuk plus 290. Gensel 295. Eichel 300. Jack Hughes plus 305. Brady Tkachuk plus 310. Sam Reinhart 355. Mark Stone plus 400 and on.
So some big time numbers on the goals. And I think you're right. I mean, again, we know that Hellebuck's in net, and I mean, he's going to be a real tough nut to crack for Canada. And meanwhile, I think Canada is going to be very focused on eliminating chances for Team USA. This was basically a 2-1 game when they played on Saturday night with an empty netter. So I think goals will be at a premium, and that's why we're seeing the numbers. What about points? I imagine Connor McDavid will be at the top of that list when it comes to anytime point scorers for tomorrow's game.
Yeah, McDavid minus 199, McKinnon minus 158, Eichel minus 141, Crosby minus 129, Matthews 121, Gensel minus 110, Hughes, Makar, Stone, Matthew Tkachuk point, all between 104 and 110. Reinhardt minus 102. How about Werenski plus 110? He's been like one of the best players in the tournament. That seems
he has been so good, and I mean he's going to be probably playing even more with McAvoy out. Although he was pretty much already the leader on the blue line. Also options for over 1.5 points, assists, and I think there'll be some specials as well tomorrow when we get ready for the game as we get closer to game time. I will definitely, as Hammer mentioned, it seems like every time I go on the road with Cool Bet, I get hot. Certainly was the case with the Jets bets when I was in Costa Rica. Now here in Boston, nailed it for the Finland game. So we'll put out a video tomorrow before the game with some thoughts on some point and goal scorers for the game. But I'm locked in on Canada to win. And right now it is a pick'em minus 108 over with our friends at Cool Bet.
One thing that Jamie Thomas was just texting me about as we got into Josh, Kyle Connor may not be in the lineup for tomorrow. He practiced as a placeholder for Brady Tkachuk, and daily faceoff is having, between him and Kreider. And, Kreider scored last game. Connor's minutes haven't been there. So something to watch for us tomorrow at the morning skates. He played. Played under. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I saw he had the white jersey on of a top 6 forward today, but you do make a good point that with Brady Tkachuk out, and of course it was Kyle who started on that line and got swapped with Brady earlier on. I think they do like the size of Brock Nelson in the lineup right now. So tell you what, if Kyle, I really liked the second half of Kyle Connor's game, particularly in the Sweden game. A little bit more room, carried the puck a lot more, was dangerous on a couple of chances. But I'll tell you what, if Kyle doesn't play tomorrow, I think he'll come back even more motivated to continue to prove some people wrong and help the Winnipeg Jets win hockey games. I mean, there were so many scenarios, Reem, when we talked about this tournament before. Okay, what's the best thing that could happen? We're focused in on our country winning the damn game, first and foremost. But I think from a Jets perspective, you want Hellebuck to continue to be the guy that spooks everyone in the National Hockey League. I think he's been that. And I mean, what can you say about Josh Morrissey and his performance so far As I said, we've got some Josh. We'll probably put that together for tomorrow on tomorrow's program as we get ready to drop the puck, because I don't think we'll have a ton of player audio tomorrow in advance of the gold medal game. I think a lot of that stuff will be coming out from today's availabilities.
Yeah, we'll also get to some stuff from the Jets. They did practice today, first practice back. They did have an optional yesterday. No Hellbuck, Morrissey, or Connor, of course. No Morgan Barron, but Adam Lowry back in a regular jersey. He talked today.
Beautiful.
We'll play some of that. And again, sounds like all of the Four Nations players could be given Saturday's game off. Mike McIntyre saying Scott O'Neill said that, so they'll discuss more on Friday. Adam Lowry said he should be good to go, and Morgan Barron skated on his own, so he's going to be skating more as an injured player. But, the one positive for the Jets, they're going onto the break, stopping an 8-game win streak, but Adam Lowry giving him, time to get healthy and get ready to come back. So that's going to be an interesting game, the first game back from the break us with
it will be, but I'll make an argument that considering the trade deadline is coming up, if you're right now a Kupari, a Gustafson, Barron when he's in the lineup, some of the guys that are in that, Mason Appleton. I mean, these players right now that, could see themselves with competition for roster spots come trade deadline day. If you're going into a game without Connor, without Hellebuck, without Josh Morrissey, I should mention the blue line too. It's a big, big opportunity, I think, for players to go in and help the team get 2 points, and kind of a further reminder to the coaching staff and the general manager that, we know it's a competitive, very, very good team with cup aspirations. Make the statement that you're one of those top 12 or you're one of the top 6, and take advantage of the opportunity that might be there for players that might not normally be in the lineup. So one more sleep, Reem, and then tomorrow we're going to be all over it. Looking for Murat's going to come on as well tomorrow. Can't wait to get his thoughts on the tournament so far, tomorrow's game. And, of course, at the same time, as soon as that game is over, it is right back to the regular season, focusing on this stretch to the deadline and the end of game 82 and where things will shake out in the West. But a huge opportunity for the Jets to close out the West. We'll see how the roster looks after the 7th of March. But the focus for Winnipeg through this final 26, as we've been talking about, not only holding down that Central Division title, but also winning the West and getting the 8th seed in the first round of the playoffs and holding home ice throughout the playoffs in the Western Conference.
Yeah, our focus will shift towards the deadline, a couple weeks away. And, the Jets trying to hold on, as you said, to that first place spot. Imagine if they did get first or get the President's Trophy. What an accomplishment that would be. But our focus on the deadline, who are they going to add? If they decide to add players, what are they going to give up? And, hey, I think they can set a record for a franchise win streak, which would be pretty cool, too, if they kept this thing rolling. So big game Saturday, 6 p.m. No breathing room between the Four Nations and the first game back.
The Oilers apparently play at noon on Saturday in Detroit.
That's crazy.
McDavid's probably not going to be in the lineup for that one, but I think we'll see a number of guys kind of get that first game back. But listen, like we talked about with Vancouver, that's a team that doesn't have any wiggle room right now. And they want to have their guys in the lineup ready to go. So, it does make sense that Quinn Hughes is going to change plans to come out here to Boston all the way from Vancouver for tomorrow's game. Tomorrow, Murat Atesh, as I mentioned, and hoping to have a special guest, Dylan DeMello, on the program as well. Looking forward to kind of seeing what he and the guys that weren't in the tournament have thought about seeing their teammates, and, of course, Dylan's defense partner, Josh Morrissey, do what he's done for Team Canada. That is going to do it for us. Again, by the way, cool bet lines, it's all up there. Pick them between Canada and the USA, -108 on either side. Get on over there. Check out all the other props and options for tomorrow's game. I will be firing out some picks tomorrow on the social channels for Cool Bet, as well as my own, and we will break it down tomorrow on WST on game day, gold medal game day for the Four Nations here from Boston, Canada, and the United States. We wait one more sleep and we fire it up tomorrow on game day, and then lots more content coming from the barn tomorrow night. TD Garden. Cannot wait to be there for a game that anticipation for this one, unlike any I can remember. Certainly maybe ever for a game that I'll be at, but I mean, I don't think since 2010 in the Vancouver Olympics has there been a game that I think has captivated Canada and the United States the way this one has tomorrow. That is going to do it for us. Thanks to Jamie Thomas, Josh Goldberg. Great stuff with Hammer, and of course, Craig Button. If you joined in late, make sure to check that out at the start of the show. A huge thanks to all the sponsors for making Winnipeg Sports Talk happen each and every day. And of course, Michael Remis for doing a great job making sure that this all came together. And it certainly did. It was a real fun show. Folks, thanks for joining us. Have a great night. Stay warm and get ready for the big one tomorrow night between Canada and the United States. We'll fire it up at 1 o'clock on Winnipeg Sports Talk after a special lock shop on Edmonton Sports Talk at noon. Right here from Boston, the site of tomorrow's gold medal game of the Four Nations tournament. For Michael Remis, I'm Andrew Paterson. Have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow on WST from Beantown.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.